October 19th, 2025, Saturday 9:34 a.m. Musée du Louvre, Seine River facade, Paris. It's a crisp Saturday morning at the Louvre, around 9:34, on the facade overlooking the Seine. Something catches attention. A construction crane, the kind you'd see at any building site across Paris. A sidewalk repair basket is slowly rising. Nothing unusual, right? Paris is always under construction. Except this basket isn't headed toward the sidewalk. It's rising toward a window marked with golden stars, the private entrance to the Apollo Gallery. Minutes later, at approximately 9:37, alarms begin shrieking through the marble halls. Glass shatters, display cases explode. Inside the Apollo Gallery, Napoleon-era jewels, pieces so valuable their worth can't even be calculated, are being ripped from their centuries-old homes. Emeralds, diamonds, crowns that witnessed empires rise and fall. 7 minutes. That's how long it lasted. Then motorcycle engines roar to life. Multiple bikes tear through Paris streets with practiced precision. Left behind on the pavement, a damaged, hastily dropped crown, gleaming in the morning sun like a taunt. The museum evacuates immediately. Police swarm. Paris locks down. Within hours, every news network on Earth is running the story. But here's what I want to ask you. When you heard about this, what did you feel? Shock? Disbelief? Did you think, how could this happen in Paris? But there was something else too, wasn't there? A thrill. Because it's like watching Ocean's 11, except it's real. And then came the questions. The same ones we always ask. How did they do it? How many people were involved? How long did they plan? What's their cut? Will they get caught? The whole world is talking about it. 7 minutes. That's all it took. But why is everyone obsessed with this heist? What's the real mystery behind it? Here are the truths nobody's telling you. The first thing you need to understand is that this wasn't just a robbery. This was a symphony conducted by someone who understood not just how to steal, but how to make the world watch. 3 days before the heist, that construction crane appeared on the Seine facade. Permits were filed. Paperwork was perfect. A contracting company, Renovations Patrimoine, had authorization for urgent facade restoration work. City officials approved it without a second thought. Here's the problem. Renovations Patrimoine doesn't exist. Never did. Someone had created an entire phantom company, complete with tax identification numbers, insurance certificates, and a corporate history stretching back 7 years. They'd even submitted minor permit applications in 2023 and 2024 for small projects across Paris. Projects that were completed without incident. They were building credibility, establishing a pattern, making sure that when the big permit came through in October 2025, nobody would question it. That's not the work of common thieves. That's the work of someone who thinks like a chess player, planning moves years in advance. But the crane was just the beginning. Let's talk about what happened inside. Security footage, what little hasn't been seized by French police, shows 3 figures entering the Apollo Gallery at 9 hours 36 minutes and 47 seconds. They're dressed in dark clothing, faces obscured, moving with the kind of efficiency that suggests they'd walked this route 100 times before, which according to museum staff I've spoken with off the record, they probably had. Here's something the media isn't reporting. In the 2 months before the heist, the Apollo Gallery underwent a routine security audit conducted by an outside firm. Guards were instructed to let the auditors move freely, to observe their normal procedures, to treat it as a learning experience. The auditors took detailed notes, asked pointed questions about response times, alarm systems, and shift changes. You can guess where this is going. The security firm, Sécurité Modernité, also doesn't exist. The auditors were the thieves, mapping every camera angle, every blind spot, every second of delay between alarm trigger and guard response. They weren't just planning a heist. They were reverse engineering the entire security infrastructure. At 9 hours 37 minutes and 3 seconds, the first display case shatters, not smashed with a crowbar or hammer. That would take too long and create too much resistance. Analysis of the glass fragments suggests a specialized cutting tool, possibly a high-frequency oscillating blade, the kind used in surgical theaters or diamond workshops. It cuts through reinforced glass like butter, silent and clean. The thieves knew exactly which cases to hit. 17 display cases in the Apollo Gallery, but they only touched 4. How did they know which four held the most valuable pieces? Because someone had told them, someone on the inside. This is where the story gets darker. Her name is Claudine Mercier, and until October 20th, 2025, one day after the heist, she was a senior curator at the Louvre, specializing in Napoleonic artifacts. 23 years with the museum. Impeccable record. Published author, respected in academic circles worldwide. On October 20th, she didn't show up for work. Her apartment in the 5th arrondissement was empty, not ransacked, just empty, as if she'd planned to leave and had taken only what mattered. Her bank accounts were closed. Her phone was disconnected. Claudine Mercier had vanished. Police are calling her a person of interest, which is diplomatic language for we know she did it, but can't prove it yet. Because here's what they found. In the weeks before the heist, Claudine had accessed digital records for every single item in the Apollo gallery, something she had no legitimate reason to do. Her work focused on military artifacts, not jewelry. Yet her login credentials show her downloading high-resolution images, insurance valuations, and security protocols for Napoleon's personal collection. But Claudine wasn't a criminal mastermind who suddenly decided to rob her own museum. Her financial records tell a different story. In March 2025, her mother was diagnosed with late-stage cancer. Experimental treatment in Switzerland, not covered by French healthcare. Cost: approximately €380,000. Claudine didn't have that kind of money. Her mother died in August. The funeral was small. Claudine took a week off work and came back quieter, withdrawn. Someone approached her during that grief. Someone offered her a way to feel something other than helpless. Not money. Claudine's bank records show no unusual deposits. No, they offered her something else. Revenge, purpose, a way to hurt the institution that couldn't save her mother, but could spend millions protecting dead emperor's jewels. We'll probably never know, because Claudine is gone. But her role explains how the thieves knew exactly what to take, exactly where it was, exactly how to get it. Now let's talk about those motorcycles. Witnesses reported hearing them at 9:41, engines screaming as they tore away from the Louvre. Police arrived minutes later to find nothing. No bikes, no riders, no trail. Paris has over 1,500 traffic cameras monitoring every major street, bridge and intersection. After the 2015 attacks, the city invested heavily in surveillance. So how did multiple motorcycles, carrying bags full of imperial jewels, simply disappear? The answer is both simpler and more disturbing than you'd think. They went underground. Paris sits on a honeycomb of tunnels, Roman quarries, medieval cellars, 18th century sewers, abandoned metro lines, World War II bunkers, and of course the famous catacombs. Most tourists know about the official catacomb tours, but those represent maybe 5% of what's actually down there. The rest is a sprawling, unmapped labyrinth that urban explorers call the Empire. The thieves didn't escape through Paris, they escaped under it. Security footage from a private parking garage 2 blocks from the Louvre shows 3 motorcycles entering at 9:43. The garage has a service elevator that descends to a maintenance level built in 1952. From there, a locked door, which someone had clearly opened in advance, leads to an abandoned section of the city's former pneumatic mail system, a network of tunnels that once carried mail canisters across Paris, using compressed air. Decommissioned in 1984, forgotten by everyone except urban historians, and apparently highly motivated criminals. That tunnel connects to others, and others, and others. Someone could travel 3 kilometers underground without ever surfacing, emerging anywhere from Châtelet to République. By the time police set up roadblocks, the thieves were already miles away, laughing in some basement workshop, while Paris tore itself apart looking for them. But here's what haunts investigators. This level of knowledge doesn't come from Google searches or tourist forums. Someone involved in this heist has intimate familiarity with Paris's underground, the kind of knowledge that takes years to acquire. Former city worker, urban explorer, someone who grew up sneaking through tunnels as a kid, or something else entirely. Let's talk money. The official estimate puts the stolen items at €480 million. But here's the problem with stealing Napoleon's jewels. You can't sell them, not legitimately. Not even illegitimately through normal channels. Every fence, every black market art dealer, Every shady auction house in the world knows these pieces. They've been photographed, catalogued, insured, and publicized for decades. Trying to sell the Regent diamond is like trying to sell the Mona Lisa. It's too famous, too hot, too impossible. So why take them? Theory 1. Private collectors. There exists a shadow economy of ultra-wealthy individuals who buy stolen art not to display but simply to own. They'll pay 10 to 20% of market value to possess something no one else can have, keeping it in private vaults where it will never be seen again. Interpol estimates there are roughly 200 miliols 300 such collectors globally, many of them legitimate business people, who would never be publicly connected to stolen goods. For them it's not about the art, it's about power, about owning the unownable. Theory 2. Ransom. Not for money, but for leverage. What if the thieves never intended to sell the jewels? What if they're planning to use them as bargaining chips? Return them in exchange for prisoner releases, political concessions, or information. Governments won't admit it publicly, but they negotiate with thieves all the time when cultural heritage is at stake. Theory 3, and this is where it gets interesting. The heist itself was the product, proof of concept, a demonstration. We breached the Louvre in broad daylight and got away clean. Here's what we can do for you. That's a hell of a resume for a criminal organization looking to expand into new markets. Art theft, jewelry heists, corporate espionage. If you can rob the Louvre, you can rob anyone. But there's a fourth theory that nobody's talking about, and it involves that dropped crown. Professional thieves don't drop things by accident. Every expert agrees, if they were sophisticated enough to plan this heist, they were careful enough not to fumble their haul. So why was Empress Josephine's crown left on the pavement? The official story is that it was damaged during the theft. Too identifiable to keep, too risky to carry. But look at the damage. The crown's main structure is intact. A few diamonds are missing, yes, but mostly from the base. Almost as if someone carefully removed them before dropping the crown. Almost as if those specific diamonds were the real target, and everything else was misdirection. Because here's what the Louvre isn't publicizing. 3 of the diamonds removed from that crown, small ones barely 2 carats each, weren't original to the piece. They were added during a 1948 restoration, replacements for stones that had been lost decades earlier. The restoration was done by a Parisian jeweler named Maurice Devereux, and the diamonds he used came from a very specific source. Jewelry confiscated from Nazi officers after World War II. Those diamonds have a history, a dark one, and if you know where to look in the underground collector's market, Nazi-origin diamonds command astronomical prices from a very specific type of buyer, not because they're valuable. 2-carat diamonds aren't particularly rare, but because of what they represent. Provenance matters in the art world, even the dark parts of it. What if the entire heist, the crane, the motorcycles, the 480 million euros in jewels was a smokescreen for stealing 3 small diamonds that nobody would normally notice? What if everything else gets recovered in a few months, making heroes of the French police, while those 3 stones disappear forever into a collector's vault? It sounds crazy, but so does robbing the Louvre in 7 minutes. 3 weeks after the heist, French police have arrested exactly 0 suspects. They've questioned hundreds of people, reviewed thousands of hours of footage, followed up on tips from across Europe. Nothing. The phantom companies, Renovations Patrimoine and Sécurité Modernité, were registered using stolen identities and burner phones. The office addresses were virtual mailboxes. The bank accounts were opened with forged documents and emptied within hours of the heist. Every paper trail leads to a dead end. Claudine Mercier remains missing. Interpol has her on a red notice, but that assumes she's still using her real identity. More likely, she's got a new passport, a new name, and is living somewhere with no extradition treaty. Argentina perhaps, or Thailand. Somewhere warm where European ghosts go to disappear. The motorcycles were found burned out in an abandoned warehouse in Saint-Denis 2 days after the heist. Forensics pulled 0 usable prints, 0 DNA. The bikes themselves were stolen 3 months earlier from different cities, Lyon, Marseille, Toulouse, part of a wave of motorcycle thefts that nobody connected until now. The underground tunnel network has been sealed off, but Paris has hundreds of entry points. Police can't guard them all, and even if they could, the thieves are long gone. What frustrates investigators most is the lack of chatter. Usually after a heist this big, word spreads through criminal networks. Someone brags, someone tries to sell something, someone makes a mistake. But this time, Silence. Nobody's talking. Nobody's seen anything. It's as if the thieves pulled off the crime of the century and then vanished into thin air, taking their secrets with them. Unless they're waiting. Unless this was just the opening act. Here's where I'm going to tell you something that should terrify you. This isn't the first time. In August 2024, the British Museum reported a minor inventory discrepancy involving several pieces from their Greek antiquities collection. The museum downplayed it. Clerical error, they said. Items misplaced during cataloguing. But 3 of those items were small gold coins from the reign of Alexander the Great. Coins that would be very difficult to sell on the open market. Coins that vanished without a trace. In December 2024, the Prado Museum in Madrid discovered that a minor Goya painting had been replaced with an extremely good forgery. How long had the fake been hanging there? Weeks? Months? They don't know. The theft was never publicized. The museum quietly filed an insurance claim and moved on. In March 2025, a private collector in Geneva reported that several items from his collection of Renaissance jewelry had been stolen. But here's the strange part. Nothing else was taken. The thief bypassed more valuable paintings, ignored a safe containing cash and bonds, and took only jewelry pieces with specific provenance tied to Italian noble families. 4 thefts across 8 months, 4 different cities, 4 different targets, all European, all art or historical artifacts, all conducted with unusual precision. Nobody connected them because nobody was looking for a pattern. Museums don't like admitting they've been robbed. It raises questions about security, insurance premiums, donor confidence. So they stay quiet, they handle it internally, they hope for recovery and move on. But what if these weren't separate incidents? What if someone has been systematically targeting European cultural institutions, testing their security, learning their weaknesses, building up to something bigger? What if the Louvre heist wasn't the culmination, it was the announcement? Intelligence services across Europe are now quietly investigating the possibility that these thefts are connected to an organized criminal network that nobody knew existed. Not a traditional mafia family or drug cartel, but something new, something more sophisticated. They're calling it the Curators, though whether that's their actual name or just a nickname invented by Interpol analysts is unclear. What is clear is that if this organization exists, they operate with a level of planning and patience that's unprecedented in the criminal world. Think about it. Creating fake companies years in advance, infiltrating museums through legitimate security audit firms, recruiting inside sources through emotional manipulation rather than money, using infrastructure, underground tunnels, phantom identities, international networks that suggests resources and knowledge far beyond typical thieves. This isn't street crime, this is something else entirely. Corporate-level planning applied to cultural theft. And if they've been operating since at least August 2024 without anyone noticing, what else have they done that we don't know about? Some intelligence analysts believe the Curators are being funded by a nation-state looking to destabilize European cultural institutions. Others think they're a private enterprise selling to the ultra-wealthy. A few, and these are the analysts who whisper in bars late at night after too much wine, think something stranger is happening. That the thefts aren't about money or politics but about control. About proving that nothing is truly secure, that every system has vulnerabilities, that the institutions we trust to preserve our history can't even protect it. Psychological warfare dressed up as art theft. So where does this leave us? Napoleon's jewels are gone. Claudine Mercier is gone. The thieves are ghosts, the investigation is stalled, and the world is left with questions that have no good answers. Will the jewels ever be recovered? Historically, major art heist recovery rates hover around 10 to 15%. Most stolen works disappear forever. Some resurface decades later in unexpected places, discovered in attics, abandoned in storage units, turned in by guilty descendants. But most simply vanish, entering private collections where they'll never be seen again. Will the thieves be caught? Maybe, probably not. The longer time passes, the colder the trail gets. After 6 months, most investigators move on to fresher cases. After a year, the file goes cold. After 5 years, it becomes a historical curiosity, something amateur sleuths argue about on internet forums while the actual criminals live comfortable lives under new names. But here's what I keep coming back to. This heist was designed to be spectacular. Someone wanted the world to watch. Wanted us to talk about it, analyze it, obsess over it. The question is why. Was it ego? Pride, a criminal's greatest work, performed on the world's biggest stage, or was it a message? A demonstration of capability meant for an audience we can't see. And if it was a message, what happens when the recipients respond? Let me tell you what really keeps investigators up at night. It's not the sophistication of the heist or the mystery of the missing jewels. It's this: if someone can rob the Louvre in 7 minutes and disappear without a trace, what else can they do? The Louvre isn't just a museum, it's a symbol, a fortress of culture and history, protected by the best security money can buy, monitored by the French state, insured for billions. If that can be breached in broad daylight on a Saturday morning, while thousands of people walk through the doors, then nothing is truly secure. Not the Bank of England. Not Fort Knox. Not the nuclear codes in the briefcase that follows world leaders everywhere they go. Because security is only as strong as its weakest human element, and humans can always be compromised. Through money, through emotion, through ideology, through the simple fact that everyone eventually makes a mistake. The Louvre heist proved that with enough planning, enough patience and enough understanding of human systems, you can take anything from anyone. You just have to be willing to invest the time. That's the truth nobody wants to admit. That's why this story has captured the world's imagination and won't let go. Because it reminds us that in our hyper-surveilled, hyper-connected, supposedly secure modern world, ghosts can still exist. Impossibilities can still happen. And 7 minutes is enough time to change everything. The jewels are gone. The thieves are free. And somewhere in Paris or Prague or Tokyo or Buenos Aires, someone is looking at Napoleon's diamonds in the private darkness of a vault, feeling the weight of history in their palm, smiling, because they know what we're all desperately trying to forget. They won. Completely, utterly, perfectly. They pulled off the impossible and got away with it. And the really terrifying part, they might not be done yet. The Louvre was the announcement. The question is, what comes next?